Hi, we're gonna performing the April trip on the Class B truck. First thing you guys gonna mention is the clearance lights, the ones on the top. They're amber in color because they face in the front of the vehicle. They're not cracked or broken. Securely mounted, no missing hardware. From there, I'm gonna start inspecting my windshield. My windshield, I'm gonna make sure it's not cracked or broken and it's securely mounted with the rubber seal. It's not excessively broken or excessive pitting. My rubber seal, I'm gonna make sure it's not excessively worn or torn and it will not leak to the inside. This one right here is my windshield wipers, my windshield wiper arm. My windshield wiper arm, I'm gonna make sure it's not cracked or broken and it's securely mounted to the vehicle, no missing hardware. My windshield wiper blade, I'm gonna make sure it's not excessively worn or torn and it's a full contact to the vehicle. Now I'm gonna inspect my headlights. This is the cover of my headlights. I'm gonna make sure they're not cracked or broken and they're securely mounted, no missing hardware. I'm gonna inspect my low beams and my high beams. I'm gonna make sure they're not cracked or broken, they're securely mounted, no missing hardware. The amber lights on my sides, they represented my left turn signal, my right turn signal, my forward flashers, and my running lights. I'm gonna look through my vehicle. I'm gonna make sure my vehicle is not leaning to either side, indicating the suspension problem or a flat tire. I'm gonna look under the vehicle. I'm gonna make sure it's no puddles, indicating that any type of fluid is leaking, or hanging hoses or hanging wires. Once I finish that, I'm gonna start checking the inside of the engine compartment. I'm gonna open it, one side, and then I will open the other side. At the DMV, it has to be 3 points of contact. You're gonna put your hand right here, your foot right here, and then you guys gonna open the hood. Once you open the hood, you're gonna start from this side. First thing you're gonna inspect is my coolant reservoir. My coolant reservoir is not cracked, broken, or leaking, and is securely mounted, no missing hardware. My coolant reservoir is on the proper level. The cap for my coolant reservoir, I'm gonna make sure it's not cracked or broken and it's securely mounted and it's on the lock position. The rubber seal inside my cap is not necessarily worn or torn and it will not leak. From the coolant reservoir, I want to inspect my windshield washer reservoir. My windshield washer reservoir, I'm gonna make sure it's not cracked, broken, or leaking and it's securely mounted, no missing hardware. It's on the proper level and the cap is on the lock position. It's not cracked, broken, and it's not leaking. From there, I want to inspect my alternator. My alternator, I want to make sure it's not cracked or broken and it's securely mounted, no missing hardware. The wires for my alternator, I want to make sure they're properly routed, no exposed wire, no frayed wire, securely mounted, no missing hardware. My alternator is belt driven. Now, I want to inspect my water pump. My water pump, I'm gonna make sure it's not cracked, broken, or leaking, and it's securely mounted, no missing hardware. My water pump is also belt driven. I'm gonna inspect my belt. My belt, I'm gonna make sure it's not excessively worn or torn, and it's a full contact to the vehicle. If I pull it from the center point, it should be not mounted to gear plate when I pull it. To be detailed on my pre-trip, I wanna inspect all the hoses on this side of the vehicle. I'm gonna make sure it's no abrasions, bulges, cuts, or leaks, and they're securely mounted, no missing hardware. I'm gonna inspect all the wires on this side of the vehicle. I'm gonna make sure they're properly routed, no exposed wire, no frayed wire, securely mounted, no missing hardware. Now we're going to the other side. On this side, first thing I'm gonna inspect is my cap, my oil cap. My oil cap is on the lock position, it's not cracked or broken, and it's not leaking. This one right here is my oil stick. My oil stick, I'm gonna make sure it's not cracked or broken, and it's securely mounted, and it's not leaking, and no missing hardware. If I need to check the oil on my motor, I will pull it out, wipe it in, reinsert it, take it out, check the level of my oil. If I need to add oil, I will add it to the cap by the gallon. From there, I'm just gonna point it right here. That's gonna be my air compressor. My air compressor is not cracked, broken, or leaking, and is securely mounted, no missing hardware. Under my air compressor is going to be my power steering pump. My power steering pump is not cracked, broken, or leaking, and is securely mounted, no missing hardware. My air compressor and my power steering pump, they're gear driven. This one right here is my steering column or steering shaft. I want to make sure it's not cracked or broken and is securely mounted by two U-joints. I have one here and one in here. My U-joints, I want to make sure they're not cracked or broken, they're securely mounted, no missing hardware, and they're properly greased. When I pull on my steering column, it should be no more than 10 degrees of play. From the steering column, I want to inspect this one right here. This is my steering box. My steering box, I'm going to make sure it's not cracked or broken, and it's securely mounted, and it's not leaking, no missing hardware. From my steering box, I want to inspect my power steering reservoir. My power steering reservoir is not cracked, broken, or leaking, and is securely mounted, no missing hardware, and it's on the proper level. If I need to add fluid, I will add it through the cap. The cap is on the lock position. I want to make sure it's not cracked or broken, and the rubber seal inside is not excessively worn or torn, and it will not leak. The hose for my power steering reservoir, I'm going to make sure it's no abrasions, bulges, cuts, or leaks, and it's securely mounted, no missing hardware. From there, I will inspect all the hoses on this side of the vehicle. I want to make sure it's no abrasions, bulges, cuts, or leaks, and they're securely mounted, no missing hardware. I will inspect all the wires on this side of the vehicle. I want to make sure they're properly routed, no exposed wire, no fray wire, securely mounted, no missing hardware. Next, I want to inspect my frame. The frame on this side of the vehicle. I want to make sure it's not cracked or broken and it's securely mounted, no missing hardware, doesn't have any illegal holes or illegal welds. From my frame, I want to inspect my leaf spring hangers. I have two. I have one in here and one in the back. My leaf springs hangers, I want to make sure they're not cracked or broken, they're securely mounted, no missing hardware. This one right here is my leaf spring bushing. My leaf spring bushing, I'm going to make sure it's not excessively warm or torn, and it's securely mounted, no missing hardware. This one right here is my leaf springs. My leaf springs, I'm going to make sure they're not cracked or broken or shifting, and they're securely mounted by the shim, two U-bolts, spacers, and 4 nuts. From there, I'm going to inspect my shock absorber and my shock absorber mounts. I have one on the bottom and one on the top. My shock absorber and my shock absorber mounts, they're securely mounted, they're not cracked or broken, and securely mounted. And my shock absorber is not leaking. From there, I'm going to inspect my pitman arm, my drag line, my upper, my lower control arm, and my tie rod. I'm going to make sure they're not cracked or broken, they're securely mounted, no missing hardware, and they're securely mounted by the castle nuts and cutter pin. I have one in here, and the other one is right here. From there, I'm going to inspect my brake chamber hose. I'm going to make sure it's no abrasions, bulges, cuts, or leaks, and it's securely mounted, no missing hardware. This one right here is my brake chamber and my brake chamber clamp. I'm going to make sure they're not cracked or broken or leaking, and they're securely mounted, no missing hardware. This part right here is my push rod, and this one right here is my slack adjuster. I'm going to make sure they're not cracked or broken, and they're securely mounted by 2 pins and 2 cutter pins. If I pull on it, it should be no more than 1 inch of the plate when my brakes are released. From there, we're going to start inspecting the tire. We're just going to point it right here, right in the middle. And we're going to say this is my inside half seal. And this is my outside half seal. I want to make sure it's not cracked or broken and it's securely mounted, no missing hardware. If my half seal was leaking, I will see a puddle or spin trail. If I need to add fluid to my half seal, I will add it through the cap. The cap is in the lock position, it's not cracked or broken, and it's not leaking. From there, I want to inspect my brake liners. My brake liners, I'm going to make sure they're not cracked or broken, and they're securely mounted, no missing hardware. This is the brake liners. They're not allowed to have less than 1/4 of the inch of the thinnest point of the material. This one right here is my brake drum. This is the brake liners and the brake drum. My brake drum, I'm gonna make sure it's not cracked or broken and it's securely mounted. Between my brake liners and my brake drum, free of debris, grease, or any other contamination. My brake drum, I will inspect it to make sure it's no sign of the coloration indicating the overheating problem. Now I want to inspect my rim. This is my inside rim and my outside rim. I want to make sure it's not cracked or broken and it's securely mounted by the lug nuts. All my lug nuts, they're present, they're on the tight position. I want to make sure they're not cracked or broken and they're securely mounted. My lug nuts, they hold in my rim and my brake drum in place. If one of my lug nuts was loose, I will see rusty in this metal rim. From here, I'm going to make sure my inside tire, my outside tire, and the face of my tire. I'm going to make sure it's no abrasions, bulges, cuts, or leaks, and it's securely mounted to my rim. This is a steering tire. It's not allowed to be regrouped, recap, or retread, and it's not allowed to have less than 4/32 of the deepest point. This tire and the tire on the other side could not be mixed match and has to be the same size. The air specification of my tire is 110 psi or manufacturer specification. If I need to add air to my tire, I will add it to the valve stamp. My valve stamp, I'm gonna make sure it's not cracked, broken, or leaking, and it's securely mounted, no missing hardware. My valve stamp cap, I'm gonna make sure it's not cracked or broken, and it's securely mounted, and it's on the lock position, and it's not leaking. This will conclude my April trip on the Class B.